This next interview that I want to show you is the one that I did with Charles Woods regarding his son Ty Woods on his first visit back to Rosecrans National Cemetery on Point Loma here in San Diego since the actual funeral of Ty. I didn't realize when he invited me that it was his first trip back. It's so funny how I thought I wanted the interview to go ahead of time, and then how once I got there, I realized it had to go a completely different direction. This is one of those things you just deal with in television. But when I got there, it was far too humbling to be there, and just a completely different mood than as you know, those cemeteries can be so just amazing, and you are put in a different almost level of consciousness. And when I saw Tyrone's grave for the very first time, I hadn't seen it before. I've been to the cemetery many times, but I didn't know where his grave was. When I saw it for the very first time, and I saw that people had left behind things that were special to them all over the top of his tombstone, we're going to show you that as well. It's just that the interview took a completely different direction, but I think a deeply personal direction, a deeply spiritual direction, to be sure, and one that I feel was probably one of the most intimate portraits of the man, Charles Woods, regarding his son, Tyrone Woods. Here you go.
Tell us about how you've grown in your faith through this experience.
Well, I mean, we all continue to grow. I think that the big thing is that people ask me, how do I handle it? Yeah. And when something like this happens, for the first several months, you're just in a state of shock. And then I think that what really comforts me is basically my view of reality. Mm-hmm. It's like Jesus, he says, not one sparrow falls to the ground outside of my Father's will. And I used to think it was outside of God's knowledge, but actually outside of his will. And the way I look at it is that Ty many times was in worse situations than this, but it just wasn't his time. And again, I don't want to be, preachy or anything like that, but this is just what's comforted me. So many times they tried to kill Jesus, but then it says he walked through the crowd or whatever, because it wasn't his time.
Right.
And that's the way I comfort myself here, is that I just say that God is righteous in all of his ways and kind in all of his deeds. He knew what was the most loving, kindest, best thing to happen to Ty. I mean, as hard as it is to say this, but we only get to die once. And sometimes our death is part of the message, part of the work that we're to do down here on earth, if you get what I mean. And I don't mean try to say this, but like say with Jesus, part of his message was the way he left this earth. Part of Ty's message, part of his work down here, was the way that he left basically laying down his life for those people that he was protecting. That was Ty. And I also think of Romans 8:28, where it says that all things work towards good to those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And somehow good is going to come out of this, or in fact, actually, when we look around, and a certain amount of good has come out. Absolutely. As a result of his death. And yeah, I miss him. I still cry occasionally. One of the things that was hardest for me to accept was here he had a brand new baby that was just a couple months old. And, it bothered me when I started to think about the fact that baby Kai would not, at least on this side of life, would never know his father. He'd know about him.
Normal concern, yeah.
Yeah, he'd know him. And what's going to happen? How is he going to be raised and all that? And then I thought about a similar situation in my life where my previous wife, she was diagnosed with extreme advanced breast cancer the day before my son, Jeremiah, was born. And he's, 22? He's going to be 23 in a couple of days. And I think about how God was able to raise him, even though he was lacking one parent. And God's done an awesome job For example, with Jeremiah. Here he is, athlete, he's got a college scholarship, 6'2", 210 pounds, totally chiseled. And like in high school, if he'd wanted to date, it wouldn't have been too much of a problem. But I remember his senior year, he came to me and he said, "Dad, I'm thinking about dating a gal on the track team. I'd need to get your opinion first." And he loves the Lord. And I just think that even though he lost one parent, just like Kai lost one parent, God still can do a good job of raising that child up. And
God used your son to teach you how to get through what you would have to go through with Ty.
Well, he uses a lot of things in life. And, hopefully I can share that with other people. There are other people that have lost children in similar situations. They haven't dealt with the issue of forgiveness. They don't see God's hand in it. And, maybe, what's something that I say might be able to help them out as well. And I have forgiven everyone that's involved. That doesn't mean that I don't want the truth to come out. And God, he balances the scales as long as we forgive and then stay out of the picture. I know where Ty is right now, and I want to see him one of these days. But I also know that if I don't forgive everyone involved, I might not see him again.
Hillary Clinton, in that particular scenario, I didn't feel like I could do it. And even though it had been my plan to pivot to politics, you'll have to watch part 2 tomorrow night to find out if I did. When I walked up, I said, let me give you a little while, because he ended up coming up after me. I said, let me give you just a little while to be alone here. And he said, no, I want to do it. And then he looked at the grave and he saw the stuff on top of the grave, which we're going to show you tomorrow night as well in part 2 of that interview. And he said, no, and immediately he started to get choked up. And that's when a lot changed for me about how this interview was going to go. And he started to tell me the story through his tears about someone leaving their silver star on top of Ty's tombstone. So anybody who's been by there, I want you to know what you've done really means something to him. We talked about faith, family, freedom, and forgiveness. And those are the general themes that we'll discuss tomorrow night in my interview with Charles Woods, part 2. Stay tuned for more right after this.